So, in the abuse and victim communities, I often see people really struggling with boundaries. And what I wanted to say about that is that I think people struggle with it because they don't understand what they are legally entitled to. They don't understand their legal rights and responsibilities. And when you understand what you are legally entitled to and not entitled to, you get a better sense of like what are reasonable boundaries. So, for example, I have legal responsibility for myself, therefore I have legal authority over myself. There are obviously like exceptions and you can sort of go down that rabbit hole, but I get to decide, I get to make decisions for myself, I get to decide what I wear, I get to decide what I do. Like I'm the person in charge of me because I'm also the person who's liable for me. Now, when you have specific situations, sometimes you're also responsible and liable for other people. So for example, if you're liable for your child, if you're liable for like an elderly parent, you have power of authority. No, excuse me, you have power of attorney and authority in that situation. So you're responsible like for their medical care, or you know there are lots of different ways where we have like exceptions in our social contract for someone's responsibility for another person. But very broadly speaking, generally speaking, I'm responsible for me, you're responsible for you. Where we get the hiccup is in a relationship, especially if you're in an abusive or toxic relationship, you'll often get a person saying, this is my boundary. You need to change what you're doing because that's not okay with me. And what that person is doing is they're transforming their preference into something that you should be doing. It's an issue of compatibility. It's not boundaries. My favorite example of this is a guy who like wants to date a baddie, gets said baddie, and then is like, I don't want you to dress like this anymore because, you know, if you're dating me, you should be dressed like a modest, you know, elegant person or whatever it is, right? Like that phrase, everybody wants a baddie, but not everybody can handle a baddie. It's you started dating this person, they were dressing this way. Suddenly you want them to change. That's not reasonable. That's a compatibility issue, and also that they don't understand themselves, like what they want, what they need. So they think it's okay to say to you, you should change how you dress because I'm not comfortable with it. Like I feel like it's disrespectful. And that may or may not be true, but that person doesn't get to decide for you how you dress. And if they don't like how you dress, then obviously you're not compatible. That's not a boundary, that's compatibility. So I dated this guy, and he was a mechanic, like a shade tree mechanic. Like, okay, guys, not my best moment, but I was dating somebody who really just like lived at home with his mom and like worked on cars sometimes. Not my best shining moment, but obviously, you know, I've gotten better. I've made better decisions. But anyway, he would argue with me about being able to come to my office. Now, at that point in time, my career is in a white-collar professional field. My career is, you know, at an office. So I would say to him, hey, listen, I am not comfortable with you showing up at my office in like greasy clothes. Like, you know, that's not the appropriate place for that. And like we had arguments about it. So the thing is, that's my job. And I get to decide who comes to my office to see me. He wanted to come see me dressed as he was, and I was like, this is office attire. This isn't appropriate. You're not even remotely like, you know, dressed appropriately for this environment, and I'm not comfortable with it. And I get to set that boundary because it's my job. It's my employment on the line. You know, this is my place of business. You don't just get to come here just because you feel like it. You have no business here unless I decide that you get to come here. Therefore, my boundary, my area of authority, my area of like power, right? So anyway, this was an argument, and they were very upset about it. This was a highly controlling person. So in the end, obviously, this relationship didn't work out. This was a person who would phrase things of compatibility in terms of boundaries. Instead of vetting in the dating stage, this is a person who would like try to get a person and then change them, like while he was with them. And I'm not the only one he did this to. this was like a very chronic thing. But when you understand truly, I have authority here, and a good way to tell if you have authority is if you have a liability, like I'm liable here. That's how you know you have authority, and that's how you know you get to set a boundary. I get to set a boundary over my actions. I get to set a boundary over my outfits. I get to set a boundary over, like the life that I lead, as long as it's not illegal, as long as I'm not breaking any laws. And so that's, when you get into an abusive dynamic, a toxic dynamic, a lot of reasons why these things start happening is because that person was not honest at first. They were trying to get you, and then suddenly they're like, you need to be different. I think a good way of thinking about this is infidelity, right? So let's say you're in a relationship with somebody and they cheat on you, and you're like, we're in a relationship, that's not okay, I have a boundary around that. True, you do not get to tell that other person they can't cheat on you. First of all, they already know that that's not a reasonable relationship thing to do. But that boundary is for you because you go, oh, I do not want to be in this situation. I do not want to have sex with a person who's putting me at risk. I do not want to be with a relationship with somebody who's like not honest. And so for me, I'm out. We run into problems when we say, I have a boundary that you don't cheat on me, and then that person cheats, and then what? Like, you have no authority, you have no power, you can't do anything reasonably. Now, if you want to go abusive with it, you can coerce, manipulate, take authority. You can use someone's shame like against them, but really the boundary is over what you are willing to do. Another boundary is that you get to make decisions from a fully informed perspective. So, for example, it's not okay for that person to put you at risk by having sex with other people, and you didn't agree to it, you're not into it, that's not like a relationship dynamic that you guys have established, like with full consent, from a consensual perspective. So that's the thing that puts you at risk that they might then be liable for. That's how you know that they are inappropriate with their actions and their boundaries. You didn't get to make that decision. So whenever you're looking at a situation and you are confused, one way to sort of assess, like, is this a boundary or is this something else, is whether or not who technically might be liable if things go bad. Or is this an issue of compatibility, because this is not a boundary, it's a preference, and this person is trying to push me in a direction or other, and now we're arguing about it. At the end of the day, you are responsible for you. You are liable for you. Another person isn't liable for you. They don't get to tell you what to do. I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.